Imagine a wave, not of water, but of molasses, this sticky, sweet substance, usually harmless, transformed into a deadly force in Boston on January 15, 1919. A giant tank filled to the brim with molasses suddenly burst. It unleashed a wave over 25 feet high, moving faster than a person could run. Buildings crumbled, people and horses struggled to escape the thick, suffocating goo. The air filled with the deafening roar of the collapse and the screams of those caught in the sticky deluge. This was the Great Molasses Flood, a bizarre disaster that shocked the nation. Why was there so much molasses in Boston? The answer to this question takes us back to the early 20th century, a time when Boston was a bustling industrial city. The harbor was always busy with ships coming and going, unloading their cargo. Among these cargoes, molasses was a common sight. But why molasses, you might ask? The answer lies in the booming industrial use of this sweet syrup. Molasses was not just a byproduct of sugar refining, it had become a crucial ingredient in various industrial processes. Factories in Boston and beyond were using molasses in ways that went far beyond its traditional role in baking and cooking. Molasses, a byproduct of sugar refining, wasn't just for baking anymore. It was being used in the production of industrial alcohol, which was a key component in many manufacturing processes. This industrial alcohol was essential for producing munitions, especially during World War I. It was a key ingredient in producing industrial alcohol, a vital component in munitions manufacturing during World War I. The demand for munitions was high, and so was the demand for molasses. This sweet syrup was transformed into a critical resource for the war effort, making Boston a central hub for its import and processing. Boston, with its bustling port, became a central hub for molasses import and processing. Ships laden with molasses would dock at the harbor, and the syrup would be transported to various factories and storage facilities across the city. The port was always alive with activity, a testament to the city's industrial prowess. The United States Industrial Alcohol Company, USIA, constructed a massive tank in Boston's North End to store the molasses. This tank was an engineering marvel of its time, designed to hold vast quantities of the syrup. It was a symbol of the city's industrial capacity and its role in the war effort. The tank, 50 feet tall and holding over 2 million gallons, dominated the landscape. It was an imposing structure, visible from various parts of the city. People would often marvel at its size and the sheer volume of molasses it contained. It stood as a symbol of the city's industrial might, but also, unknowingly, as a ticking time bomb. The tank's presence was a constant reminder of the city's industrial ambitions and the risks that came with them. Little did anyone know that this massive structure would soon become the center of a tragic disaster. It was an unseasonably warm day in January. The air was mild, a stark contrast to the icy grip of winter just days earlier. The streets of Boston were bustling with activity, people enjoying the unexpected warmth. Children played outside, their laughter echoing through the streets, while workers went about their daily routines, unaware of the impending disaster. At 12:40 p.m., the peace was shattered by a deafening roar. It was a sound unlike any other, a mix of metal groaning and an explosive burst that sent shockwaves through the city. People stopped in their tracks, their faces turning pale as they looked towards the source of the noise. The giant molasses tank, its seams already strained by the warm temperatures, finally gave way. The tank, which stood 50 feet tall and 90 feet in diameter, had been a looming presence in the North End neighborhood. For years it had held millions of gallons of molasses, a key ingredient for the alcohol industry. Millions of gallons of molasses surged out with tremendous force, creating a wave that ripped through the streets at 35 miles per hour. The thick, sticky liquid moved with a terrifying speed, engulfing everything in its path. It was as if a giant brown tsunami had been unleashed upon the city. the air filled with the pungent smell of molasses, quickly replaced by the cries of those caught in the sticky deluge. People struggled to free themselves from the viscous trap, their movements slow and labored. The molasses clung to them, making every step a battle for survival. The wave, a brown, churning mass, crushed buildings, ripped homes from their foundations, and tossed elevated train tracks aside like toys. The destruction was swift and merciless, leaving a trail of devastation in its wake. In the aftermath, the city would be left to grapple with the horror of what had transpired, a day forever etched in its history. The flood's impact was immediate and devastating. The thick molasses quickly engulfed everything in its path. People, horses, and even wagons were swept away by the sticky torrent. Those who managed to stay afloat found themselves trapped in the viscous goo. The molasses, heavy and suffocating, made it nearly impossible to move or breathe. The flood claimed the lives of 21 people. Many drowned, unable to escape the sticky grasp of the molasses. Others were crushed by debris or suffocated under the weight of the heavy syrup. Hundreds more were injured, some with cuts and broken bones, others with burns from the hot molasses. The aftermath of the flood was a scene of utter devastation. The 1919 Boston Molasses Flood, a disaster that seemed almost surreal, left the city in chaos. A massive storage tank burst, releasing over 2 million gallons of molasses into the streets. The wave of molasses, moving at an estimated 35 miles per hour, obliterated everything in its path. Buildings were reduced to rubble, streets were buried under a thick layer of molasses, and a sickly sweet stench hung heavy in the air. The force of the wave was so powerful that it knocked buildings off their foundations and overturned vehicles. The sticky substance seeped into every crevice, making the cleanup process even more challenging. The cleanup effort was monumental. The city mobilized quickly, but the sheer scale of the disaster required an unprecedented response. Workers from all over the city, including city employees, volunteers, and even the military, were called in to help. It took weeks to clear the streets and months to pump the molasses out of the harbor. The molasses had hardened in the cold January air, turning into a thick, sticky mess that was incredibly difficult to remove. Workers used shovels, brooms, and even fire hoses to try and clear the streets. The cleanup involved thousands of volunteers and workers. People from all walks of life came together to help, showing a remarkable sense of community and resilience. The disaster had brought the city to its knees, but it also brought out the best in its people. Firefighters used seawater to hose down the streets, turning the molasses into a sticky, syrupy mess. The seawater helped to dilute the molasses, but it also created a new set of problems. The mixture of molasses and seawater was incredibly difficult to clean up, and it took a toll on the workers. The harbor, stained brown with molasses, took months to clear. The molasses had seeped into the water, creating a thick, sticky layer on the surface. Workers used boats and pumps to try and remove the molasses, but it was a slow and painstaking process. Even years later, residents claimed that the area still smelled faintly of molasses, especially on hot summer days. The disaster left a lasting mark on the city, both physically and in the memories of those who lived through it. The Boston Molasses Flood remains one of the most bizarre and tragic events in the city's history. The public demanded answers. How could something so bizarre and deadly occur? The finger of blame pointed squarely at the USIA, the company responsible for the tank. A massive lawsuit ensued, with victims and their families seeking justice and compensation. The investigation revealed a series of failings. The tank, hastily constructed due to wartime demands, was poorly designed and constructed. It had thin walls, lacked proper safety features, and was never adequately tested. The investigation concluded that the combination of shoddy construction and inadequate safety measures led to the disaster. The Great Molasses Flood left an indelible mark on Boston. The disaster exposed the dangers of industrial negligence and the need for stricter safety regulations. The tragedy also highlighted the city's resilience. Despite the scale of the disaster, Bostonians came together to rebuild their city and support those affected. The flood also brought about significant changes in construction and engineering practices. The disaster led to the implementation of stricter building codes and safety regulations, not just in Boston, but across the nation. The tragedy served as a stark reminder of the importance of public safety and corporate responsibility. The Great Molasses Flood, though a tragic event, taught us valuable lessons. It highlighted the importance of careful planning, rigorous testing, and stringent safety measures in industrial projects. The disaster emphasized the need for accountability and responsibility when it comes to public safety. The legacy of the flood lives on, not just in the annals of history, but in the very fabric of modern safety regulations. The disaster serves as a constant reminder of the importance of learning from past mistakes and taking proactive measures to prevent future tragedies. Today, a century after the disaster, the Great Molasses Flood serves as a reminder of the unpredictable nature of life and the importance of learning from our past. It stands as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring power of community in the face of adversity. Though the tragedy faded from public memory, the lessons learned continue to shape our world. By remembering the Great Molasses Flood, we honor the victims and ensure that such a disaster never happens again.